Like, subscribe and press the bell icon for more videos from PH and Learn. For more videos, download our app from the Play Store.
Hello guys, welcome to PH and Technology Private Limited. In the previous session, we have learned what is the history of C programming language. Today, we are going to learn what are the basic features of C programming language so that it makes the C programming language so important, that it makes it the basic foundation of any programming language. Some important features of C programming languages are as follows. Number one, it is a procedural programming language. Now let's see what you understand by procedural programming language. Now, for example, this is my 1000 lines of code. Now what C does exactly with this code is, it breaks down this code into several steps, into several procedures, and then it processes it. And therefore, C is known as procedural programming languages. Now let's take an example for that. Let me convert this 1000 lines of code into a gigantic block, in a big block. This is my block. Okay. Now I want to break this big block into smaller blocks. See, my block has broken. Now these small blocks are known as procedures and functions. So this is all about what is procedural programming language. Now second, C is known as a middle level language. Now what do you understand by middle level language? Now every programming languages is bifurcated into different levels of language, that is high level language, low level language and middle level language. So these languages are basically bifurcated. Because of their degree of abstraction. This degree of abstraction decides what is the level of a particular programming language. Now let's consider what is this degree of abstraction. Let's see what do you understand by abstraction. Abstraction is nothing but hiding the system details. For example, let's take a ATM machine. This is my ATM machine. Now when you go to your ATM machine, you withdraw your cash or you retrieve your mini statement. You put your data in the machine and retrieve the data whatever you want. But inside the ATM machine, whatever the process is, it's not aware to you. It is hidden. Okay, that is for example, what is the amount of cash over there, how the perfect exact amount of cash is withdrawn to you, what is the process going on in there. You are not aware of these things. And this is what is known as abstraction. Okay. Now, let's see, for example, what is high level language. Now, this high level language requires less efforts. Why? Because it is more user friendly and hence you don't need to know every possible detail of your computer system. For example, of high level languages are Java, Python, C++, Pascal, etc. Now what is low level language? Let's see what is low level language. Low level language requires more effort because in this language, in this level of languages, you need to know every possible internal details of your system. For example, assembly language and any machine languages. Now, middle level language. C is known as middle level language. Middle level language is, on the one hand, it is simpler, but on the other hand, it requires the access of every details of your system. System features such as direct access to memory pointers, writing assembly code within the C code, and bit manipulation using bitwise operators. So this was the main feature of C language. Third, C language provides us with rich number of built-in functions, standard libraries and header files. Fourth point, C language is very fast and efficient. That is, it processes the code which is given to it very fast and effectively. features of C programming language. Now, let's see, after we have studied all the features, history, every basic possibilities of C language. Now, how and where these C languages are used? Like, what are the such software, what are the some real-time application where this C language is used? For example, in GUI, that is graphical user interface of Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Premiere. These are the UI which are designed using C programming language. Then browsers like Google Chromium, then Thunderbird, Mozilla Firefox, these are the browsers which are created by C programming languages. Then compilers like Apple C, Dave C, these are some compilers. And then games like Snake Games, TikTok, Tic-Tac-Toe, these are some games which are developed using C programming language. So these were the real-time applications of C language. Now, we have studied the every basic possibilities. Now let's jump to our first program. Let's start. We will do our code in Visual Studio. You have installed your Visual Studio. Then let's do the first program. Okay. Now let's start. So this is my basic home page. Then here you have to add folder. Then create a folder over a directory. Let's say D. I have already created C programming. Then add over here. See, everything is my created. Then here new file. You have to add a new file here. Let's say hello.c. Now we are doing C programming language, so you have to save your program using .c. Okay. Therefore .c, then press enter. My file is created. Now let's do the programming. Hash include stdio.h, enter, int name, printf, hello 1, then return 0. So this is my complete program. Then save it using Ctrl S. Okay. Now press the run button. So this is run code. See, I've got my output over here. Okay. So this is the steps how you can run your code in the Visual Studio. Now I have written the code, I have saved my file, I have done every possible thing, and therefore my code is now running. See, the output is coming, hello world, everything is proper. But what is happening behind this code? That is what is happening at the back end. How this after pressing on the run button, how I am able to perform the code? How my output is getting generated? So this is my hello.c. I have to take this hello.c file to the preprocessor. This is the process which is happening in the back end of the compiler. In the compiler. Okay. This hello.c, that is the source code, will go to the preprocessor. Now what this preprocessor does is, the library files, that is we have written hash include stdio.h, that is my header files. So it will de-encrypt that. Okay, it will decrypt that. It will decrypt that and will insert the files over there. Okay, this preprocessor will do all. It will process all the libraries, header files, all building functions. It will read those building functions and will convert it into the compiler readable form. Okay. After it is done doing this, it will pass it to the compiler. Now what compiler does is, it will read each each and every step, it will read every program and then will convert it into assembler language. Okay. After converting in the assembler language, the compiler will send it to the assembler. Now, this assembler comes into the picture. Now, what this assembler does is, it will read it into the, now the compiler has converted into assembly language, it will read the code and will convert it into the machine language, that is which the machine is understandable with. So now the compiler passed the code to the linker. Now this linker does is, after processing through a preprocessor, compiler, then assembler, this code is in different various forms, that is variables, some have variables, some have constants. Okay. So the linker will collect all this information and will combine it in a whole and then will execute a file which is known as .exe file. See, above my head you are seeing the .exe file. When this .exe file is generated, when I have pressed the run button, when my output is generated, simultaneously my .exe file is also generated. So this is the whole process which is happening in the backend of my IDE. Okay.
Now that we have studied how the backend of the programming, how the backend of the compiler works, let's see how the computer code structure is ready. Now before writing the code, we always start with #include stdio.h. What exactly is this #include? Now this hash means hash is calling to the preprocessor. Right now we have studied in the block diagram that firstly the source code goes to the preprocessor and that preprocessor includes the file systems and excludes this #include everything. So this hash calls the preprocessor and then include. Include is the directory where all the libraries are stored. Okay, so what is that? Hash is the preprocessor, it calls the preprocessor, and include is the directory where the library are stored. Which libraries? Libraries that are stdio.h, stdlib.h, conio.h, iostream.h, etc. These are some of the libraries. Now why stdio.h? There are many libraries. Why not stdlib.h, conio.h? Why stdi only? Because as you can see in this program we have used printf. Okay, so this printf function is stored in my library, that is stdio.h library, and hence we have to include that file so that when you are using printf or scanf you will not get an error. If you haven't included stdio.h, then you will get an error in printf that file not found. Then secondly we are seeing int main function. Now what is this int main function? Int is nothing but a data type. We will later in the later session we will see what is data type. First focus on main function. What is main? Now let us consider a racing game. You are racing, you have participated in the racing competition. So in that, what happens in that game competition is you have a starting point and a finishing point. The moment referee will show you the sign that Gyanima gets set go, you will proceed, right? So now tell me that you won't proceed from the finishing line or some other point, you have to proceed from the starting point itself. Okay, so similarly in my program also main function gives me this starting point. When this program is compiled, my C compiler search for this main function. This main function is the starting of my program. The moment the C compiler founds this mail, then it knows that after this mail, each and every step I have to execute it. I have to run the program. This is my body of the program, main body. So what is now main? Main is my starting point of the program. Now this int main, if you are using int main, I have to use a return type over there. Now we have to use a written statement while we are using an int main function. Now why is it? This main function, if for example, if we haven't used this written statement, still my program will work. Okay, it won't give any compile time error, but what will happen is it will give a runtime error, and the error which will it give is called as non-zero exit code. Okay, so that means when you are calling int main function and you are not giving a written statement, then there won't be any compile time error and the code will run successfully. But the moment the moment you discard the written statement, still the program will work, but what happen is it will give runtime error. And so to avoid this, you have to have a written statement while you are using an int main function. We use a written statement because this int main function tells us that I want to have a written statement. That is the requirement of it. Now, when we are using void main function, at that time we don't require any written statement over there. Why is it so? Because void main function doesn't return anything. It doesn't allow to return anything. And therefore, we don't need to have any written statement with void main function. Now, after this main function, we are seeing a printf statement. And through this printf statement, we are taking the output as hello world. Now, what is this printf statement? In C programming, there are two functions, that is printf and scanf. These printf and scanf functions is used for the input and output purposes. That is, it gives printf statement gives us the output, whereas the scanf statement takes the input. Okay, so now in this code you can see that in the printf statement we have written the hello world because we want the code to return the hello world statement. That is, we want the output from there, and hence we have written the hello world statement in the printf. Okay, we won't write this hello world statement in the scanf. Why? Because scanf is used to take the inputs. It is not used to give the outputs. Okay, now these printf and scanf statements are stored in stdio.h header file, and therefore in the starting of the coding you have to include that header file. Okay, and so that header file is needed. Clear? So this was the basic structure of your C programming. Now, in programming language, there is a concept of syntax. Now, let's see what does the syntax means. Now, take for example, in your English language, you have grammar over there, right? From that grammar, you learn how to form the sentences. You learn how to form the sentences by adding some elements over in the statements, right? For example, if I want to stop a statement, then you have to add a full stop. If I want to give a pause in a statement, then I have to add a comma. Then and then only you will know that this is the pause, and I have to small for a second. Then the second line is started, right? So this is the grammar of the English language. Similarly, in our programming language also there is a grammar, but the difference is here this grammar is known as syntax, right? So let's see the syntax over in my program. You can see the curly braces over there. Now this curly braces defines the body of our coding, defines the
body of our program. When we open these curly brace, it means that my main program is starting from there. And when I close the curly brace, it means that my program is ended here. Till this, I want to execute my code. All my main code is written in that in that part, in that body of the program, right? Now there is a printf, there is lastly there is a semicolon over there. Now what is this semicolon? This semicolon is nothing but the full stop in our C programming language. This semicolon indicates that this printf statement is ended. Now you can execute the second statement, right? Whenever I am compiling my program, it will tell the compiler that this is one statement is completed. Now go to the second statement and run that statement. Again that second statement will have a semicolon and so on. Okay. Then you can see in printf, hello world is written in the double quotes over there. Now what does double quote means? This double quote means that whatever is written in that double quote, that should be seen in the output console. That means it is the output that this code, this line should be seen when I run the code. That is I should get that output printed over in my console. Okay. Now consider if I haven't written the hello world in that double quotes, then what will happen? It won't run the code properly and we will get an error, right? So why? Because there is no double quote, so compiler doesn't know what I want to get printed over the console, and hence we have to add a double quotes there. Okay, so this was your basic syntax, how you can write, how you have to write your C programming language, your C codes. Okay, now in the next session we will study what are the basic elements, that is data types, identifiers, keywords, etc. So this was today's session. See you in the next session. Thank you.
For more videos, download our app from the Play Store.